Welcome to Forbidden Desires channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. I used to think I had everything under control. I was the kind of woman who stayed in her lane, kept the house running, cooked the dinners, smiled when it was expected, and faded into the background when it wasn't. So when I let all three of my stepson's friends in that evening, I thought I was just being polite, just doing what a decent stepmom should do. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? Turn them away, act cold and distant. That's not me. But that night something changed, and not in some vague, dramatic crash of thunder kind of way. No, it was quiet, slow, almost invisible, until I realized that I wasn't just opening the front door to let them in. I was opening a door inside myself that I hadn't touched in years. It started off so simple, so innocent, but somewhere between the casual laughs and those three polite smiles, I felt something shift, not in them, in me. You ever have one of those moments where you feel seen, like really seen? After years of feeling like wallpaper in your own home, someone just walks in and notices you, and it throws you completely off balance. I wasn't prepared for how that would feel. I wasn't prepared for what it would stir up inside me. I thought I was strong enough to ignore it, wise enough to keep things in check. But I wasn't, and the scariest part, a piece of me didn't want to. I don't share the story to justify anything or to paint myself as a victim. I share it because maybe you've been there too, that space where loneliness and attention collide. And suddenly you're not sure who you are anymore. So before I tell you what really happened after I let all three of my stepson's friends in, I just ask one thing: keep an open mind and an open heart, because the truth isn't always black and white. And sometimes the things that make us human are the hardest to talk about. And if you're someone who appreciates raw, real stories that pull back the curtain on what happens behind closed doors, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, tap the bell, so you never miss when a new secret unfolds. This is Forbidden Desires, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. I'm Celia. I'm in my late 30s. Now somewhere between young enough to remember what it feels like to be desired and old enough to know that kind of attention doesn't come around as often anymore. Not when you're a stepmom, not when you're married to someone like Leo. Leo and I have been together for almost 9 years. He's the kind of man who means well, I think, but he shows it in ways that don't reach me anymore. Work comes first, then golf, then whatever's left of him. Tired, distracted, unavailable. Some days I feel like a housekeeper with a ring on her finger. Other days I don't even feel like that much. He comes and goes without noticing the details: my hair, my mood. The way I linger a little longer in the hallway, just hoping for a reason to speak. We live in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where the lawns are neat. The neighbors wave but never ask real questions, and every house looks like a picture of perfection. If you don't look too close, early summer brings the warm breeze, open windows, the smell of cut grass. But inside our house it's cold, not the temperature, the feeling, the silence, the way footsteps echo because no one speaks unless they have to. And then there's Lucas. He's 18, my stepson, Leo's only child. Lucas is a good kid, always has been quiet, kind, a little awkward, but sweet in his own way. He calls me by my name, never Mom, which I understand. I came into his life a little too late for that title to stick. We coexist mostly. I make him breakfast, ask how school's going, fold his laundry. He thinks me, smiles, disappears back into his room. We don't have long talks or shared secrets, but he's never been rude, just distant. Till there's a part of me that watches him, sometimes sees the way he moves through life with his friends, and wonders what it would have been like to have a child of my own, to be someone's center, someone's home. His friends Eli, Benjamin, and Trevi. They're always around like a little pack, each one with their own energy. Eli is the confident one, sharp eyes, quick wit, always the one talking loudest in the group. Benjamin's quieter, observant, he watches more than he speaks. There's something in his silence that feels older than his age. And Trev's the charmer, the kind of boy who could sweet talk his way out of anything, that smile of his too practiced, too perfect. But when you've been ignored long enough, even a look can feel like a lifeline. They're good kids, always respectful, always said yes, ma'am, and thank you, and you didn't have to, but this is amazing. And I'd smile and say, oh, it's nothing, even though it was something, even though I clung to those words long after they left the room. 'Cause the truth is, I was lonely, not just the kind of lonely where you miss a hug or a warm touch. No, I'm talking about the kind that settles into your bones, the kind that makes you feel like a ghost in your own life. I cooked, cleaned, I organized birthdays and booked doctor's appointments. I remembered everyone's allergies and favorite snacks, and how they liked their towels folded. But who remembered me? Who asked how I was doing some nights? I'd sit by the window with a cup of tea, not because I needed the view, but because I needed the silence to feel less empty. I'd watch the cars pass the porch, lights flicker on across the street, and I'd think, is this what I traded my dreams for? I used to be passionate, spontaneous. I used to laugh loud, dance barefoot in the kitchen. I used to matter to someone. But somewhere along the way I faded, and I don't blame anyone for that. Not entirely life. Just wears you down. One small neglect at a time. I always felt like I was watching life pass through the windows, never really part of it, just observing from the sidelines. So when those boys started coming around more often, when their voices filled the house and their laughter echoed off the cold walls, it didn't feel like noise. Felt like warmth, and I didn't know it yet. But that warmth, it was the beginning of everything that came next. It was a Saturday when Lucas asked if his friends could come over. I remember I was folding laundry when he poked his head into the room casual as ever and said, "Hey, is it cool if Eli, Benjamin and Trevi come by later? We've got a group project and figured it'd be easier to work here." I said, "Sure, of course I did." Leo had gone out of town that weekend, business trip or maybe a golf retreat. Honestly, I stopped keeping track. He left early that morning with barely a kiss on the cheek, said he'd be back Sunday night, so it was just me and the boys. I spent the afternoon tidying up, nothing too crazy, just enough to make the house feel welcoming. I made a tray of sandwiches, cut up some fruit, poured drinks into tall glasses with too much ice. I don't know why I went that far. Maybe I just wanted the house to feel alive again. They showed up late afternoon, all energy and laughter and backpacks slung over shoulders. I greeted them at the door, Eli with his confident grin, Benjamin giving me a respectful nod, and Trevi flashing that smile that always seemed just a little too aware of itself. They were polite as usual, thanked me for the food, complimented how the house smelled, told me I didn't have to go to all that trouble. I waved it off, said it was no big deal, but inside it felt nice. I stayed mostly in the kitchen, wiping counters that didn't need wiping, pretending to be busy. Every now and then I'd peek into the living room where they had their books and laptops scattered across the coffee table papers, half-strewn laughter bubbling up between them. It was noisy, the good kind, the kind that fills up the hollow parts of a house. At one point I brought in more snacks as I leaned down to place the tray on the table. I caught it, the shift, a pause in their conversation, a glance that lingered a second too long. It wasn't inappropriate, not obviously, but something about the air changed slight fairly there, and yet I felt it. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being ridiculous. These were Lucas's friends, boys. I'd known for years, kids who'd grown up in this living room. Till I couldn't shake it. As evening fell, the sky outside turned an eerie shade of gray. The air got heavy, like the storm was holding its breath. I remember watching from the window as the clouds swelled, listening to that deep, distant rumble. And then, the lights flickered once. Twice out, everything went dark. I stood there waiting for the hum to return, but it didn't, just silence. Then a crash of thunder that rattled the glass. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps on the stairs, laughter trailing behind the boys appeared at the bottom, phone flashlights, cutting through the dim. "Looks like it's out everywhere," Eli said. "Mind if we hang out down here until it comes back on?" I hesitated for a moment, not because I didn't want them there, but because something in their energy felt different. Still playful, still polite, but warmer, somehow more attentive. "Of course," I said. "Make yourselves comfortable." They settled into the living room like they'd always belonged there, pillows on the floor, candles lit on the mantel. I brought in blankets, a few flashlights, even an old board game I found tucked away in the hallway closet. As I passed by, I felt their eyes follow me, not in an obvious way. Not in a way I could call out, but I felt it. That subtle awareness, and the strangest part, I didn't feel uncomfortable. I felt seen for the first time in a long time. I wasn't background noise. I wasn't just Lucas's stepmom or Leo's wife. I was present, and they noticed I sat at the edge of the room pretending to read a book, half listening to their laughter. Occasionally one of them would ask me a question, include me in the banter, little things, nothing inappropriate, just familiar, the kind of familiarity that builds slowly, the kind that can slip past your guard if you're not careful. And that night, in the dim candlelight with the storm outside and silence from upstairs, I felt something awaken in me, something I hadn't felt in years. And I knew deep down that this wasn't just a power outage. It was the beginning of something I didn't understand yet, but couldn't ignore. It's strange how quickly a moment can settle into your skin, how one evening, one small shift can stir up everything you thought you had packed away. After the lights went out and the laughter settled into something softer, I stayed in the background watching, listening. They weren't doing anything wrong, just boys being boys, sitting around talking, playing cards by flashlight, the kind of simple, innocent night that teenagers should have. But the way they looked at me, there were moments, fleeting, almost imperceptible, where I'd catch a glance that lingered just a second too long, a smile that felt loaded. Trevi said something I can't even remember what it was now, just a silly joke, but he called me gorgeous as part of the punchline. Everyone left. It passed like a breeze through a room, but my heart caught it, and the way his eyes didn't quite leave mine right after I knew he wasn't fully joking, not really. I tried to brush it off. I laughed along, said something light to shift the moment, but my tea felt warm and not from the candles. I went into the kitchen to clean up Kneading's face. Kneading air. I turned the faucet on, but I wasn't really washing anything. I was staring out the window above the sink, watching the rain blur the streetlights, listening to the soft thunder roll in the distance. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't turn around right away. I felt someone standing there, close but not too close. It was Benjamin. Quiet, calm. Benjamin. He didn't say much, just leaned against the counter with that unreadable look of his, said, "You always keep this place so warm." I don't know why that line hit me the way it did. It wasn't about the house. I knew that, and I think he knew I knew it. I smiled without looking at him, said something about trying to make people feel at home. He nodded, then added, "You do even when you don't realize it." And then he walked out just like that. But those words, they stayed that night lying in bed. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Was I reading too much into things? Was I imagining it? Was I so starved for attention that I was twisting innocent moments into something they weren't, or had I been invisible for so long that even the smallest bit of warmth now felt like a spotlight? Leo hadn't complimented me in, I don't even know how long, years, maybe not sincerely, not like he used to. He'd say I looked nice on holidays in that flat, distracted tone. He didn't notice when I changed my hair, didn't seem to care when I lost weight last year, not for him but for myself. And yet here I was heart racing over a quiet boy's comment and a glance I wasn't even supposed to catch. I hated myself a little for it, but I also felt alive, and that terrified me because I didn't want to cross any lines. I didn't want to feel what I was starting to feel, but I couldn't deny it either. There was something about the way they saw me, not as a chore, not as someone past her prime, but as a woman. Till somehow. And deep down some part of me had been waiting for that, longing for it. I tried to silence the thoughts, tried to convince myself it was just kindness, just youthful charm, just the storm messing with my mood. But late that night, in the stillness of my bedroom, I found myself wondering if it was all in my head. Why did it feel so real? Why did I feel so awake? Why did I hope just a little that the power wouldn't come back on? For that night something shifted, the storm passed, the lights came back on, life resumed, but the energy didn't go back to what it was, not completely. Over the next few days the boys started coming by more often. First it made sense. End of term projects, group assignments, all the usual stuff. But part of me knew they didn't really need to be here, not every day. Still, I didn't stop them. I didn't ask questions. They were always polite, always respectful, too respectful. Maybe Trevi started calling me Miss H, with a grin that felt like it meant something else. Eli would hang back a few seconds longer than the others whenever they left Benjamin. He didn't say much, but I'd catch his eyes on me, soft and steady, and he never looked away too fast. One afternoon I passed by the living room while they were waiting for Lucas. They were whispering. I didn't catch the words, just the rhythm, hushed quick, the way people talk when they don't want to be heard. I paused in the hallway, heart beating a little too fast. I wanted to believe it had nothing to do with me. I told myself not to be paranoid. But there was this moment right as I stepped into view when the room fell quiet and all three of them looked up just for a second, and then they smiled. It was harmless. That's what I told myself. But that night when I looked in the mirror, I saw myself differently. I didn't wear anything revealing. That's never been my style, but I did take a little more care. I wore my hair down instead of in a messy bun. I picked out tops that hugged just slightly, jeans that fit right, a touch of gloss on my lips. I wasn't trying to invite anything. I just wanted to feel like me again, and they noticed. Trey said, "Something smells amazing." "Is that you or the food?" With that same playful smirk, Eli leaned against the fridge and said, "You know, you're actually really cool for letting us hang here all the time." And Benjamin, he didn't say anything, but he gave me that look again, the kind that felt like it saw right through the act. I laughed it off. Shrugged, said, "You're welcome anytime," but inside I was a mess. Every compliment lit up something in me. Every glance made me question my own intentions. Was I encouraging it? Was I being reckless? Or was I just responding? Because the truth was I wasn't trying to be noticed, but it felt good to be, and in that house, in that marriage, in that silent routine hadn't felt good in a long time. Then Lucas started pulling back. He stopped talking as much, ate dinner in his room, didn't bring the boys around for a couple of days. He didn't say anything outright, but I could feel the shift. One morning I asked if everything was okay, and he just mumbled, "Yeah, it's fine," but it wasn't. He wouldn't look me in the eyes. I told myself I was imagining things again, that he was just being a moody teenager. But that night something happened that made my stomach twist. The doorbell rang around 7. I opened it, and there they were, Eli, Trevi, and Benjamin, smiling. No Lucas. I blinked. "He's not here," I said, stepping aside anyway. Trevi chuckled. "Yeah, he said he might be late, told us we could wait here." I hesitated just a second, but then I nodded and let them in. And as they walked past me one by one, I felt it, that same shift from the night of the storm, the weight in the air, the quiet electricity. I told myself it was nothing, just 3 boys, just a misunderstanding, but somewhere deep in my C*******T, something told me this wasn't random. Something told me this was the moment where the line between what was innocent and what wasn't began to blur. I let them in. I shouldn't have. I knew that the second the door clicked shut behind them, but I didn't stop myself. They stepped inside like they belonged, like this had already been decided. And maybe it had, not out loud, not in words, but in the space between the glances, the jokes, the silences that carried just a little too much weight. I asked if they wanted anything to drink. They said no, they were polite, too polite. We ended up in the living room, me on the edge of the armchair. The 3 of them scattered across the couch and floor, not too close but not far enough. First they were quiet. The usual banter was gone. Their laughter was replaced by something slower, more careful. Felt like we were all waiting for someone to break the silence in just the right or maybe the wrong way. Eventually Eli spoke, "So do you ever get bored here?" I laughed, but not because it was funny, because I didn't know how else to respond. "For it," I said. "Why?" He shrugged. "Just seems like it'd get repetitive." Trevi chimed in, grinning. "Yeah, like too quiet all the time." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. They weren't talking about the house, they were talking about me. Benjamin was watching me again, not in a hungry way, but in a curious one, like he was trying to read every flicker of emotion that crossed my face. And suddenly I felt too aware of everything. The way I was sitting, the way my hands trembled slightly in my lap, the way the room felt warmer than it should have. I looked away. "It's not boring," I said quietly. "Just quiet. There's a difference." No one said anything after that. The silence felt like it stretched for hours, though I know it couldn't have been more than a few seconds. There was something charged in the air, not explosive, not loud but heavy, like a word, unsaid, a door half open, a step not yet taken. And my heart, it was racing. Not because I wanted something to happen, but because I knew something could. And if I was honest with myself, part of me didn't know whether I would stop it. I kept thinking, where is Lucas? Why had he told them to come without him? Had he or had they said that on their own? I opened my mouth to speak, maybe to break the moment, maybe to change the subject. But I didn't get the chance. The front door opened. It was slow, quiet, like someone didn't want to be noticed. And then there he was, Lucas, standing in the doorway. He didn't say anything. He didn't even look surprised. He just looked at us, all of us, one by one. His eyes stopped on me for a fraction longer, and in that look I felt everything: confusion, suspicion, disappointment, maybe even betrayal. He didn't speak, didn't ask questions. He just walked past us, up the stairs and into his room. The door closed behind him, and the silence that followed, it wasn't quiet anymore. It was deafening. They didn't stay much longer. After that, no one said a word, but the energy shifted the moment Lucas walked past us. Whatever invisible thread had been holding the room together just snapped. Eli was the first to stand, muttering something about needing to get home. Trevi followed right behind, all charm drained from his voice. Benjamin didn't say a thing, just gave me a look, not judgmental, not apologetic, just unreadable. Then they were gone. The house felt darker after they left, heavier. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door. I don't even know what I was waiting for. Maybe for someone to come back, maybe for time to reverse. But nothing happened. Stairs. I heard Lucas's door close again. Not a slam, just firm, final. I didn't sleep. That night I lay in bed next to an empty space where Leo usually slept, listening to the ceiling creak, the clock tick, the silence grow louder in my own head. The next morning, I made breakfast out of habit, eggs, toast the way Lucas likes it. I placed the plate on the table, poured juice, sat across from his usual seat, but he didn't come down. Didn't say good morning. Didn't even make a sound. I walked upstairs, knocked gently on his door. "Lucas, food's ready." No answer. I knocked again. "Can we talk?" Still nothing. That silence cut deeper than any argument could have. Later I found the plate of food still on the table, untouched, cold. Like a message I wasn't meant to. Mississippi Leo came home that evening, suitcase in hand, phone still pressed to his ear. He kissed my cheek, barely tossed his bag by the stairs, asked what we were having for dinner. He didn't notice the tension in the air, or maybe he did and just chose not to acknowledge it. That was his way. Selective attention. He sat at the table, scrolled through his emails, talked about work, never once asked if anything had happened while he was gone. And I said nothing because I didn't know how to explain something that technically hadn't happened, not really, but it had inside me, in the space between looks, between words, between breaths, held too long. I tried to move on like nothing had shifted. Tried to busy myself with chores. Keep the house neat, follow the rhythm. But I could feel the crack widening under the surface. Lucas still wouldn't speak to me. He left early for school, came back late, locked himself in his room, no eye contact. No conversation until one afternoon I was folding laundry upstairs when I heard him in his room. He was on the phone. I could hear the low murmur of his voice through the door. I wasn't trying to listen. I swear I wasn't, but the words stopped me cold. She let them in, all of them, silence. Then I don't know what she was thinking. I don't even know if she cares. I stood there holding one of his t-shirts, my heart in my throat. I wanted to knock. I wanted to explain. But how do you explain something You don't even understand yourself." I didn't know what he thought he saw. I didn't know what he believed had happened, but it didn't matter. The damage was done not just to him, to me, to everything I thought I knew about myself, and no matter how normal I tried to pretend things were, nothing felt the same anymore. I kept going through the motions, but something in me had cracked. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat without tasting guilt. Couldn't walk past Lucas's closed door without feeling the weight of everything. Unspoken, pressing down on me, and the worst part, I didn't even know what I had done, not in a physical sense, nothing happened. But inside me something shifted, something dark. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. Did I cross a line emotionally, spiritually, silently? And if I didn't, was it worse that I wanted to? 'Cause the truth, the ugly, complicated truth, is that a part of me felt alive in those moments, not because of them specifically, but because for the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. I started remembering the first night. The boys stayed over the way, the candles glowed against the storm-darkened windows, the hush of their laughter, the way Benjamin stood in the kitchen with me, not saying much, just being there at the time. I told myself it was harmless. But now, looking back, I realized I'd been waiting for something. Maybe not something to happen, but something to wake me up. I had been numb for so long, and when you're numb, even a spark can feel like a wildfire. And now all I feel is shame. Shame for letting it get that far. Shame for not stopping it sooner, shame for enjoying the attention, even though I never asked for it out loud. I tried journaling. I found an old notebook in the back of the closet, tucked between tax papers and expired coupons. I sat down at the kitchen table late one night while the house was quiet and wrote 3 words. "What's wrong with me?" I stared at them for an hour, couldn't bring myself to write anything else. The next day I took a walk. I needed air. I needed to feel the sun, even if it burned. As I passed by my neighbor's garden, the one with the wild flowers and wind chimes, she looked up from her pruning. She's older, soft eyes, the kind of woman who always says hello, always waves. She looked at me for a moment, not with curiosity, with concern. "Are you okay, dear?" "That's all," she said, just 6 little words. And for a second I almost lost it. My throat tightened, my eyes burned, everything inside me wanted to scream, "No, I'm not okay." I'm not even close, but I just nodded, forced a small smile, said, "I'm fine," because how do you explain to someone that you're drowning in a pool? You dug yourself, that your heart is at war with your morals, that the loneliness crept in so slowly you didn't even notice it was choking you until it was almost too late. I don't know what Lucas saw that night, but I know what I felt, and I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself for it. 'Cause somewhere in the middle of wanting to feel something again, I hurt someone who trusted me, even if I never meant to. Even if all I did was open the door. I don't know what Lucas really saw that night. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. He's never brought it up, never asked questions, never accused me, but he hasn't looked at me the same since, and that silence between us speaks louder than words ever could. I haven't seen his friends since not one of them has come back to the house. No texts, no explanations, just absence, like they all knew the line we almost crossed, and that silence was the price for stepping too close. And still I think about that evening more than I should, not because I want to relive it, not because I wish it had gone further, but because of what it revealed about me, the cracks I hadn't noticed, the emptiness I'd stopped feeling, the need I buried so deep I forgot it. How to voice. Was it wrong to wanted to feel seen, to enjoy the warmth of attention, even if only for a moment? I still don't have the answer. All I know is that the line between emotional hunger and emotional betrayal is thinner than I ever realized. If you've ever been in a place where loneliness clouded your judgment, if you've ever felt invisible in your own life, if you've ever found yourself walking a line you didn't mean to cross, please share your story in the comments. Sometimes we carry so much in silence, afraid to admit that we're just human, flawed, craving connection. Let's not carry it alone anymore. Let's talk about it. And if stories like this speak to you, if you believe in peeling back the layers and looking at the messy, complicated truths we hide behind closed doors, then subscribe to Forbidden Desires. Because the truth isn't always simple, but it's always worth. My story ends here. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks for listening and see you in the next videos.